future. There are no people in the future. No people at all. There are no people in the future. Where did all my people go? There are no people in the future. Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away.
Hey, everybody, welcome. It is Friday, January 14th, 2022. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Each week, I talk to the one, the only, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. Now, you can support this show by becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/rcpress. And you can also help out the show by heading over to our YouTube channel if you're not there already. Smash that subscribe button, like the stream for this show, and hit that notification bell so you'll know every time that we go live. Yes, indeed. On today's show, a lot going on, man. A lot going on. Kyrsten Sinema, of course, announced that she will, kill voting rights legislation because of her love of the filibuster. Her teary-eyed performance on the Senate floor all but sinks hopes to pass voting legislation this year. Now, Schumer still says that he's going to begin debate on the voting rights bill on Tuesday and will force the issue on a vote to amend the filibuster, reform the filibuster at that point. We shall see. And the U.S. Supreme Court shoots down Biden's vaccine and testing mandate for private businesses. Oh, Build Back Better, what about that? Oh, never mind. And the leader of the Oath Keepers, Stewart Rhodes, is indicted on charges of seditious conspiracy. And Republicans from at least 5 states forged official electoral certificates and sent them into the National Archives of the U.S. Senate ahead of the January 6th insurrection. Gee, that's a coincidence. It's a funny coincidence, isn't it? It's funny. Very funny. And the Omicron variant of COVID is predictably swamping the U.S., and the federal government is just getting around to thinking about helping out with masks and testing. How about that? Should they, that should get up and running sometime around after the crisis is over. Maybe the summer. What do you think? That's smart. Crazy. And the Republican Party is changing its rules to prevent any GOP presidential candidates from taking part in debates hosted by the Commission for Presidential Debates. But of course they are. Of course they are. Today in Pennsylvania, it will not disappoint, I'll tell you that. In addition to Sean's stories from the farm show, we're going to hear about Pennsylvania House Speaker Brian Cutler admitted earlier this week that he was in contact with the January 6th Commission. Makes you wonder who Jim Jordan and Scott Perry were meeting with in Harrisburg while they were attending the Stop the Steal rallies. And gubernatorial candidates Lou Barletta and Charlie Giro. Charlie Giro? Giro? How do you say that, Sean? Giro? Giro. Who the hell knows it, these people? And Charlie Giro's co-worker, Kevin Harley, all signed their names presenting themselves as electors and forged documents that were submitted to the Department of State and the U.S. Library of Congress. Hey, guess what? Not only that, but Pat Poprick, chair of Bucks County Republican Party, was one of the signers on those too. How about that? Oh, how about that?
And Leah Hobbs, the woman who signed the affidavit in Delco.
There you go. Look at that. Wonderful. Well, full-time adjunct faculty members at Harrisburg Area Community College will have their union elections. Will have their union elections. Oh, we got this electors on my head. Have their union elections from February 24th to April 7th. Faculty members at HAC have faced years of anti-union tactics from the administration to delay a union vote. The school was caught padding their faculty list with professors who didn't teach in order to stop the card signing process. Yes, sounds like you got a union buster in chief over there. And Central Bucks School District votes to lie that its health and safety plan is following CDC guidelines. Yep. Well, Petridge School District, by contrast, just ignores all guidelines. It says everyone back to school after 3 days. No mask needed here. It's crazy. And in other news, breaking right before we go to record today, former House Speaker Mike Turzai is running for governor because he loves the kids. Oh my God. Oh, God, in today's last call, yes, I finally got around to it. Don't Look Up. Saw it. Yep. Sean saw it. We're talking Don't Look Up today. Yes, indeed. We'll also talk a little about Station 11. I just finished Station 11 last night. Is freaking just such an amazing, amazing show. And I also just started Foundation on Apple Plus, so I'll give you a little bit of thought on that. For more PA Progressive Talk, tune into the Rick Smith Show's live stream from 9 p.m. Eastern on his YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you get your streams. Make sure you sign up to his podcast, wherever you get your podcast, and head on over to thericksmithshow.com for the latest across all his platforms, because he is hot right now. And if you haven't already, you got to check out the Sisters of the Night Caucus podcast. You can find it on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcast. The amazing PA women stirring the political cauldron behind this podcast rock the house, and they know where the bodies are buried. Make sure to follow them on Twitter at The Night Caucus. That's at The Night Caucus on Twitter. And attention gamers, right? Here we are in 2022. Get your game on. Head on over to the Game In. The Game In, that's with two N's. It's a Quakertown-based black family-owned gaming store. They're friends of the show, and they've got everything for retro N64s, the latest consoles, video games for all platforms, and loads of collectibles, action figures, and Funko Pops. And kids get a discount at every year on their report card. Check them out on their Facebook page. Follow them on Twitter at The Game In. If you've got a question about a game, looking for something hard to get, shoot them a message or drop them an email at thegameinpa@gmail.com. And a special shout out, as always, goes to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at SongADayMan. That's with two N's. That's at SongADayMan on Twitter. And look, everybody, if we want progressive future, we need progressive media now more than ever. Support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a patron of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Just simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We're here for the fight, but we need you. Become a patron for the price of a good beer once a month and help keep the media in the movement and the movement in the media. Become a patron for as little as $5 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/rcpress today. Well, Sean, man, it's good to be back, I have to say. It's good to be back here after this week. Crazy.
Yeah, same here. I survived the farm show, which was nice. I am wearing my Field and Stream final today,
I see that.
In celebration of the farm show this week. Yeah, went with the more conservative outfitters, you know what I mean? So
there you go.
Why not? When in Rome.
When in Rome. There you go. Well, everybody, I want to say, before we get the show started, I told everybody, we didn't have a show on Monday, and I just didn't say too much about it, too, as well. As I just want to let the reason why we didn't have a show on Monday and this week is my son kind of came down with COVID this week. He started feeling bad over last weekend and tested negative initially, then tested positive on Monday. And he's had he's fully vaccinated. The irony, or I wouldn't say irony, the craziness of it is that he was scheduled for a booster shot this weekend. But obviously he can't have it now, but as soon as he was eligible, we were going to sign him up for the booster. But the COVID got him first because, of course, he's in the Penridge School District, where he is one of only about 3 students in his classes that actually wears a mask. He has been wearing a KN95 since the beginning of 2022, since after the holidays. But he's still got to eat lunch, and they've got a lunchroom packed with kids without their masks on. And even some of his, some of the people that he's normally around who's have been exposed to COVID were, there, no mask, having lunch. You got other kids that are in his classes coughing, not wearing masks. And this is a direct consequence of kind of what goes on. So, here we have it. So we've been quarantining all week. My daughter's been home all week, even though the Penridge School, I mentioned this a little bit at the top of the show, but the Penridge School District has basically revised their back to school plans, which basically says hey, you got symptoms, right? 3 days. That's all you need is 3 days. You still got symptoms, no problem. Come on back. Don't worry about the mask. Right. So they redid their literally on Monday. I called and said, okay, listen, I just want to double check and see what there is. And they gave me a back to school date and what the thing was. And literally later on that afternoon, the requirements were changed. So technically, my son could be back in school today, despite the fact that he feels like crap and has been coughing and everything like this. But he's not. We're not sending him back into school, and we've quarantined my daughter too as well, just to make sure that number one, that she doesn't get it. Because we don't. It takes a while for the symptoms to show up. We didn't want to also inadvertently expose other kids who are in school without masks. Right, for this. So that has been my week. My week did not go as I had planned. I mean, we got lucky on one thing, is that because the fall semester went so late this year, our spring semester at Kutztown is starting a week later. So normally I would be going back to campus on Tuesday, but now I have one additional week, which again I need, because this was the week that I finished all my prep work, and obviously that got put behind. So I want to just apologize for not being there on Monday for Monday night show, but that's the story. We're dealing with, my son is fingers crossed he's feeling better. He's still got a cough and things like this, but this is what happens. I mean, you even when you're trying to do the right thing, my kids have masked up since the beginning. We've got them all the vaccines, and still, we limited the number of people that were around, and he still contracted COVID. So this goes to show you, this is, we've been saying this right from the get-go. This is not something you can do just as an individual and decide for yourself when you're putting other people at risk. But it's been a very dark week for me, just in terms of having confidence in people in general, to be honest with you. And I'm not proud to say that, but I have a very dark view of a lot of people that are in this town. And by extension,
no, it's selfish and stuff like that.
Well,
I mean,
that's exactly it.
I was at the bar last night, and one of the people I'm friends with there, I wouldn't say like friends outside the bar, but one of the people that goes in, works for the county, Republican, younger guy, younger than my age. And, we're talking about COVID. I'm like, yeah, I got my booster shot. And he's like, you're vaccinated? And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to die. And then he got COVID a few weeks ago and just trying to like downplay it, but then said like, shit, like, it was like 5 days it lasted. And it was like, someone who was unvaccinated. And he said it just like fucking sucked. And I'm just like, yeah, that's why I got vaccinated. Like, like I'm not the skinniest person in the world here. And it's just like, I want to make sure I don't fucking die from this thing. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, exactly.
But just
this is the thing, is like, I really think.
And it's also your selfishness is clogging up the hospital systems right now. So if someone has a heart attack or someone has a minor, a minor thing that happens, like say your appendix ruptures or something, like people aren't going to be able to get fucking beds in the hospitals because of this stuff, because your selfishness has clogged up every single hospital bed available in this area. And other people can die because of that.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I got an email from my or a text from my brother today too as well. And he's just checking on my son to see how he's doing. And then he tells me too as well that one of his best friends who lives in New York City wasn't so lucky. He was vaxxed and he was boosted, but he still got the Omicron variant, and he's in the hospital on oxygen all week long. The show, it's a breakthrough infection, and this can happen. And that's even, that shows you how incredibly, and New York is actually one of the better places to be when it comes to, people being aware of stuff. It just shows you how virulent this thing is, and, or how much it spreads. And yet you get in a place like, here in Pennsylvania, this part of Pennsylvania especially, well, it's all throughout the state, and people have just given up. And, our federal government, look, it's hard too, because like our federal government has basically given up.
It almost feels like shock doctrine.
Yeah.
Like we're just walking around as like a lobotomized public. Like, you know what I mean? That's what it feels like right now. Like, we're walking around as a lobotomized public. I feel like especially the progressive movement has been lobotomized, we've taken precautions and stuff like that. But the right wing has like 2 or 3 years of like organizing ahead of us, because they're just strident, of being out there all the time, and now it's just like it's setting up for like a really bad storm after this election or 2024.
I'll say.
I mean, if you don't read shock doctrine and you know what's going on right now, like the shock was COVID. We're all lobotomized. Like, you know what I mean? Just like, you know, we have to come out of that beforehand or something. Like, because they're going to use that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, look.
I don't know. I mean, it's just like disaster capitalism, and it's.
No, I agree, but you know, I think about it like this. I think about this too as well. Is like one of the big differences is that we just gotta, you know, again, this is just going to take time, and you know, it's time that I don't know we have, to be quite frank with you. But it's going to take time to build a counter party. I mean, you know, one of the things that you say is that Republicans have the organizing and things like this is, well, that's only half the story. Is they also have like a party infrastructure that are willing to just burn shit to the ground.
That's the other thing I was talking. And yeah, you mean like, and it's the other thing I was telling this person, like they have an historic event like the Tea Party or the insurrection. They get these people elected into office, school boards, councils, and like township levels. Then they become your next state senator, your next state representative. And in like 10 years, these people are leadership of your statewide party.
Right.
I mean, that's just the natural projection of this stuff. Like, and it's just like, you know, like this is like, you think our politics are bad now, wait till like 5 or 10 years and these people start getting into higher offices. And it's just because they exploited a moment in time where like Democrats were flat-footed. I mean, and it's not just because of like not going out and knocking on doors, but also like, you know, stuff with Sinema, like Manchin burning down like the Burn Back Better. They're going to burn down voting rights. You know, you have these people who are fascist sympathizers at this point.
Right.
Like if you're not going to gut the filibuster for voting rights, then you are standing like with the brown shirts at this point. Like
Absolutely.
There's just, that's it.
Absolutely. And look, you know, it's like you've got, and you know, I would add to that list of things. I agree with everything you just said, and I would add to that list, you know, a Democratic Party leadership that is just living in an alternative reality. Is that they're not?
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like they are. I mean, people were laughing at like, you know, we don't look up, and no, they're making fun of you. You like the Democratic Party, like that's who you're making fun of in this movie.
Exactly.
Not the conservatives, but like, like, no, I mean, I feel like that's exactly how the party operates. Like, you know, you saw it with last week with the fucking Hamilton thing at the January 6th vigil. Like, just
I still can't get that like unburned out of my mind, Sean. But
no,
it's like,
I mean, like, this is what they do.
Look,
like,
I watched. Okay, we can do some of this now. It's like I watched some of like that. Don't give up after, or don't look up. I'm sorry. Don't give up. Listen where my head's at. This is what I've been literally telling myself this all week. Don't give up. Don't give up. I saw Don't Look Up like after we talked last week, right? And after that Hamilton video. And to see like in Don't Look Up, the fact that they virtually do exactly that, right? That their response to, right, like is like, well, what are we going to do? How do we deal with this? How do we ensure that we have this, you know, a proper response to, you know, this comet coming down? Oh, I got it. Let's throw a concert with a meaningful.
Let's poll test first.
Yeah, let's poll test and let's throw a concert with meaningful lyrics. You know, I mean, seriously. It's like, you know, this is, that's not politics. That's entertainment, you know? And
I will say like when, yeah, I will say like when they came up with like the galactic capitalism part, we're going to mine the comet. Like, I just started thinking of you.
What have I been saying? What have I been saying? Right?
like I really think Sirota listens to the podcast because this is just like,
dude, I'm like, that's it. That's like, what I've been saying. This is what I've been saying. Like everybody makes fun of me having my little space news, but dude, that's where these people's brains are at. You know? I mean, it's, yeah. And I'm not saying like again, like
I mean, but no, like yeah. I think we gotta save the last part for this because there's gonna be spoilers and shit probably.
Yeah. We'll come back. We'll come back to this in today's last call. But it's like,
but no, I mean, like that. This is exactly how the Democratic Party and leadership reacts. Like,
well, I mean, let's just look at it. I mean, seriously, you know, you look at what just happened yesterday, right? I mean, One, you got the U.S. Supreme Court that shot down Biden's vaccine and testing mandate for private businesses, right? And let's be clear,
in record speed.
In record speed, and what that
record speed,
right? And what that was. Well, let's be clear about this. It was saying that you had that large private businesses had, they had the mandate vaccines, right? And people to show proof of their vaccines. But if they didn't get the vaccine and there was some sort of objection they had to it or something like this, then they had to submit to weekly testing, right? That is I would say, an incredibly reasonable approach. Right. I mean, you're not basically saying everybody should get vaccinated. You're even leaving room, right? You're leaving some wiggle room for a whole bunch of other kinds of things. But you say, okay, you're not going to do this, then you gotta get tested. You got to wear a mask, right? That's going to be just baseline common sense stuff, right? And they literally start pulling arguments out of the kind of about the whataboutism jar, right? Well, what about sporting events? Right, you can get it there too. What about schools and what about the grocery store? How do you want to force these businesses to do this stuff when you can get the Omicron everywhere? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I can't believe you have fire regulations in your office, right? Because your kids could light a match at your house and burn it down, right? Lightning could strike.
Well, look what happened in Philadelphia last week.
Exactly.
Well, look what happened in Philadelphia with that horrible fire. I mean, yeah. And there was a fire in New York or Brooklyn or the Bronx.
Exactly.
Last week, that same exact type of thing. Housing regulations weren't followed by the agencies because they're gutted.
Right. And if you look at this, you've got a federal agency in OSHA, right, that is charged to do exactly what it did. Right. And this is, we've talked about the Chevron case, kind of a while back, and with the whole idea about, I don't want to go down that alleyway quite yet. But the idea about kind of taking away the ability for these agencies that are charged to kind of, keep us safe, right? Whether it's the EPA, whether it's the OSHA, this was a shot against that, right? It's setting a precedent for federal agencies to be able to kind of to regulate and to set policy to kind of keep people safe and what they're supposed to be doing. And so now you got everybody kind of headed back into work, and these businesses being like, who the hell cares? Like I think it was American Airlines or United. They basically said that they were losing to death, right? One employee a week before the mandates. One employee a week was dying, right? After they instituted the mandates and after they instituted mandatory vaccine and mandatory testing, right? Guess what? Yes, there's still been hospitalizations. I forget the numbers on hospitalizations ahead of time. There were still some hospitalizations, but they haven't lost a single person since then.
And I think there were studies, I think UPMC or one of the hospital networks out here in central Pennsylvania, was saying even getting rid of the people who refuse to get vaccinated in their hospitals, the hospitals are running more efficiently because of everyone who is vaccinated. Absolutely. And not getting sick.
Exactly.
And not losing time.
Exactly. But that's just been gutted, right? And so, again, let's be clear. This should not come as a surprise to anybody that the U.S. Supreme Court did this. I mean, this is the kind of voting has consequences kind of shit, right? This should be a wake-up call to anybody who was sitting there freaking, watching back-to-back episodes of freaking Jimmy Dore every day, or kind of thinking about that they need to go vote for the Green Party candidate because because their foo-foos are hurt by the Democratic Party. You got to understand that there are real consequences here. I am so fed up with the Democratic Party. Let me tell you this. Let me be clear about this. But at the same time, I also understand that real people are now being harmed, right, as a result of an election. Right. And if Hillary Clinton had beat Donald Trump, would we have a progressive future? Hell no. And that's what we were saying at the time. Hell no, we would not. We would have had to fight tooth and nail, right, to deal with that kind of neoliberal onslaught. But we wouldn't have Supreme Court justices that are shooting down OSHA requirements to keep people safe in a pandemic. Right? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's driving me absolutely crazy right now, because you have that, and then you've got this mentality that's coming on with people like Kyrsten Sinema, and Joe Manchin, who can walk onto the floor of the U.S. Senate and give this like teary-eyed performance about how important the filibuster is to kind of keep from dividing each other, which the consequence of her action to basically not reform, say she's not going to reform the filibuster, is going to deny people the right to vote.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you also got to think, like, this wouldn't have happened if someone like Harry Reid was the Senate president, leader of the Senate.
Yep.
Like, I feel like this shows the failures of the Biden administration to not get their agendas through, and it also shows the failures of Chuck Schumer and being an ineffective Senate leader, who's more concerned about electing more Connor Lambs and Katie McGinty's to the Senate instead of actually doing their fucking job and getting the agenda through.
100%. There was this. I don't know if you listened to the Majority Report yesterday or not, but there was this woman. Her name is Rachel Greenwald Smith, and she wrote this book called On Compromise: Art, Politics, and the Fate of the American Ideal. I would strongly recommend people go listen to her. I tweeted it out yesterday and sent it out because it was a fantastic interview. I've ordered this book. I'm going to read this book, and she just makes this, and she basically she says this, right? She says there's this whole idea that has shifted over the past I don't know, whatever, let's just say decade for the sake of decade. I don't remember exactly what she said, but where compromise was something that used to be part of the means to an end, right? And it was something that people walked away from not happy about, right? When you compromise on key issues or key kind of ideals, then it doesn't feel good, right? But sometimes that's what is required in order for democracy to move forward, right? That is one of the pressures of democracy. And so that's what she's saying, so compromise has always been this fraught thing. But that has been turned into not a means, but an end, right? So that we know we reach the end when we have compromised. That compromise is what we're seeking. That compromise is the thing that should make us feel good. And I was like, there you go. And this is exactly what the rhetoric of the Biden administration has been, what the rhetoric of Nancy Pelosi has been, what the rhetoric of Chuck Schumer has been, what is the rhetoric of certainly Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin have been, that somehow that the compromise itself, right, that where everyone is kind of like giving up on any kind of principles whatsoever, that's a good thing. And, she makes the case for an uncompromising politics at this point. And I think that's 100% right. So I would definitely check out. Her name is Rachel Greenwald Smith. Again, the book is On Compromise: Art, Politics, and the Fate of the American Ideal. Sorry, Sean, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I mean, it's ridiculous that like we're being held hostage to performative politics instead of like passing what people elected you to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And and again, I think my hope is gonna have to come back down to the kind of the local and regional level, because we're seeing just a massive failure everywhere right now at the thing. Once the Build Back Better bill went down, and once Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin were allowed to let their approach to politics rue the day, that for me is like, okay, then we're done at the national level. I mean, I'm not saying I'm giving up. I'm not saying that, okay, it's hopeless. What I'm saying is like, they're just showing us. And so Biden could go give his voting rights speech, but that's not going to go anywhere. It could be the best speech you could
in
ever
Georgia.
In Georgia.
Hundreds of miles away from Morgantown or Phoenix.
That's where it should have been. It should have been in West Virginia.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to Georgia.
Or Phoenix, Arizona, where they tried. Yeah.
Right. And I understand why, like, again, in normal times, Georgia is a logical place because you just had, the Senate rest in the balance because of basically what happened in Georgia. However,
and the history of Martin Luther King and
exactly
all that. Like,
right? Everything would make sense in normal times. These are not normal times. And the barrier right now is not in Georgia. It is in West Virginia and it is in Arizona. And Arizona, by the way, was the last state, right, to sign on to the Voting Rights Act, right? Was the last one, or the what do you call it? The Voting Rights Amendment, right? That would have been a great place. Head on into Arizona and put the screws into Sinema, who basically lied to her constituents. But no. You do the kind of like the standard thing and going where it's safe, and you're echoing the way things used to be by giving this performance, but the performance falls flat when you're not connected with the way reality is right now. So, again, there's the hope right now. On other fronts at the national level too, as well. I think this is a positive move. You see that Stewart Rhodes, a leader of the Oath Keepers, has been indicted on charges of seditious conspiracy. I have to say that is that's a little juicy, Sean. I got to say that. I was happy to see that there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised that. Yeah, I mean, that's actually pretty shocking in my opinion that they are doing that. I still feel like the Democrats are not going to hold Trump or Stone or those people accountable for January 6th. But I mean, it's good that they're going after like the Oath Keepers at this point and the people that, with sedition charges. I hope it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't stop there, but I just have a feeling that, Trump will not be held accountable for this.
Yeah, and even more so, the people like directly below Trump, I think that's need to be held accountable too, as well.
But like Bannon, Stone,
Navarro, Jim Jordan,
like that,
right, and
Mark
Meadows, and I mean, right across the board. I mean, and I think that I think this is a positive step, right? At least in terms of the way that case is proceeding. Right. And so just so for everybody out there who says that we're always trashing on Democrats, like watch this. Like I can walk and chew gum at the same time. Right. It's like we can acknowledge the gross failures across the board and for the in the Biden administration, and at the same time acknowledge that here's a good thing that is going on right now in terms of the prosecution of the case on January 6th. See, we can do two things. We need to call things as they are, I guess. But that is it. That is a positive thing. And so now we're going to see, okay, we saw that Mark Meadows basically says he's not going to participate. Jim Jordan says that he's not going to participate willingly. So now the question is, are they going to move forward and require them to testify? Right? Are they going to issue subpoenas at some point? That's going to be interesting to see. It's also going to be interesting to see if they're going to bring in people like Roger Stone and kind of grill him. Are they going to grill in? From what I understand, they've also grilled Katie McElhinney. McElhinney, how do you say her? She was the spokesperson, the Trump spokesperson. Yeah, kind of leading up to the January 6th. She's talking about it. She's been into the committee, and apparently she's been cooperating. So we shall see where this goes. It certainly doesn't feel like it's over yet, which is a good thing. And I also have to say that the recent uncovering of these, these states, at least 5 states right now that have forged official elector certificates and sent them to the National Archives and U.S. Senate ahead of the January 6th insurrection. We've seen Rachel Maddow has been reporting on that all week. What's the organization?
The funny thing is, like, this wasn't a Politico story or a Politico scoop where she said it was. These documents have been online with a group called American Oversight since March of 2021. So if people want to look at a really good organization that's doing nothing but filing right to know requests and Freedom of Information Act requests with the federal government and in these states that Republicans have tried to overturn, they have a ton of documents that they have dug up. We've dug up the same documents with Fulton County and stuff like that, and it's just like one of these websites that definitely take apart and look at and look into because this stuff has been floating around for months at this point, especially with these fake electors.
Exactly,
almost a year.
Right, exactly, which is really interesting. And apparently, one of the stories that came out, Pennsylvania, of course, was part of this, except they changed some of the language in their in the slate of electors that they sent in that basically said, in the event that a court should rule, then these will be the electors, where the other ones were basically saying, nope, these are the electors. And, we saw, folks in this state went on and kind of signed on to those that thing as well. What this exposes, I couldn't help but think when I started seeing these these documents when Rachel Maddow was reporting on it this week and kind of showing what they look like. This reminded me of the ALEC initiatives that we saw following the Tea Party victories in 2010. right? Where you start to see these model legislation that was being rolled out, right? So it's like this kind of coordination by this infrastructure that is already in existence, right? So, whereas what gets a little frustrating about watching Rachel Maddow report on it is that she gets into this Russia mode, right? Where it wants to kind of make it like this, this one person conspiracy thing without acknowledging that the rot is actually in the Republican infrastructure, not just the Republican Party, but the entire infrastructure on the right is what is moving in this direction. So,
and I think Rolling Stone broke another story this week about the funding behind the insurrection. And, you see the Bradley Center. You have the Bradley Center, who is crucial in pushing through gutting union rights in Wisconsin. You have the Scaife Foundation on there, was backing them. The Scaifes, that foundation. Now, this isn't like the Scaifes themselves giving the money, obviously. These are the foundations with the names on it. But like there are these pools of money that are just sitting there that have accrued interest over years by these billionaires and shit like that. And like this is how like the right wing operates. I remember sitting at a conference, and I think, was it Jane McAlevey was there, or Jane Meyer, the dark money story.
Jane Meyer.
They were saying Jane Meyer. I think Jane Meyer was a really good like AFSCME, one of the top researchers at AFSCME that does this type of stuff. Explain how like these foundations work, like donors trust and stuff like that. They're not like the Koch brother. Yes, they're Koch oriented, but like the way these foundations work is you have these millionaires or billionaires who are about to die, and instead of passing their allowances or like their inheritance down to their kids, who they think will misspend it on like liberal causes, are just pumping millions of these fucking dollars of their money into these funds, like the Scaife, or Bradley Center is more of like an actual think tank,
right.
But you have like these other funds like Donors Trust and the Scaife Foundation, where it's just like you have oodles of money just laying around, and this shit just goes everywhere.
100%, 100%. And I think that this is kind of where we're at. So, and again, all the more reason why it's great that the work that you're doing, the work that you and say PA Spotlight are doing, and among other groups that are kind of digging into this stuff. Because I really do think that we need to understand both how things work and to fight on that score, on that level. Great discussion going on in the chat right now, and about how to actually, organize within Pennsylvania, and about how to kind of deal with a Democratic Party within the state that has been, if I'm being generous, say slow to get any kind of move on when it comes to getting up to speed on this stuff. But I think what kind of
like I wouldn't pay attention to what Democratic Party's doing.
Right.
Like in the state, I am, if you're looking for places to put your energy, it depends on where you're at. But like Working Families Party is doing a lot of good work across the state now. It's going to be having more of a footprint across Pennsylvania. We're going to start holding legislators accountable and refusing like endorsements over things like that, like over different issues. There is a lot of organizing and energy going on in that realm. And, you have organizations like Philly Power Research that's really good at doing all this type of stuff. You have Working Families Party, who I would say get involved with. Same thing with PA Stands Up, and like other groups. I think that's where the energy's at, especially with working families.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that, I think that that we shouldn't get bogged down into the question about,
like for instance,
whether or not we should or should not kind of be kind of, in an abstract thing, support the Democratic Party or should have a third party or things like this. I don't think the abstract question is valuable at this point. I think that comes in as a practical question. So I think it's like building and organizing the infrastructure then and making a tactical decision about, say, does it make the most sense to run, say, for example, on a Democratic Party ticket, or is there an opportunity to run on a working party, a Working Families Party ticket? That
no, well, you can't.
No, but I mean, like, the way Working Families Party, right, has worked, right, has been you could work and organize with Working Families Family, but you run as a Democrat, right?
Yeah.
In
And this isn't
Pennsylvania.
like New York with diffusion ballots and stuff.
Right,
like
right. That was my whole point. So
this
it's like
is more progressive issues.
right. So like there may be a time, right, in certain locations where, say, a candidate that runs strictly, say, for example, on a Working Family Party's ballot, might have a shot, but that is not going to be the case in the vast majority of places across the state of Pennsylvania. So like right now, and again, I hate to keep on plugging everything from the Majority Report, but Adam Hilton was on last week on January 6th. There you go. And he has this book called True Blues, The Contentious Transformation of the Democratic Party, in which he was talking about the differences in party structure between the Republicans and the Democrats. And the Democrats basically is a shell without infrastructure. They have money right at the top, but they do not understand building party politics. They basically have contracted all that stuff out. And there's ways of actually thinking about that critically in such a way that, we're organizing and building power, right? And then occupying parts of that shell, kind of when necessary. So that in such a way, allow the dead weight to be dead weight. Let them do whatever talking they want to do. But, like I had when, Diana Lagerman was on this show kind of a few weeks back. She basically said is like, you had people who basically on shoestring budgets and volunteer hours and sheer will were organizing campaigns. And then kind of like late in the game, you have these Democratic operatives begin to show up and tell them what they can and cannot say in ways that eventually were detriment to their campaign. Like, so for example, they were told, you should not talk about critical race theory. While that was the primary thing that the school boards, the right wing was basically bludgeoning everybody over the head with, right? And they were told,
and like the messaging that,
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
And the messaging that the unions and like the other apparatus came up around it, instead of saying this is a civil rights issue, they're like, well, yeah, CRT is real, but it's not taught in schools. Like, no, this is about civil rights. Like, boom, like this is about them trying to stop teaching civil rights in school. But like no one wanted to pick up on that messaging. Like, you know what I mean? And it's just and it's just obvious. It's perplexing, the counter messaging. But then you get those projects like Bucks United that comes in, like this D-Trip-C staffer runs the thing and they're telling people what they can and can't do. And it's like, they say, well, we like the police too. But so the Republicans. Or it's like Shapiro this past week put out his 10-point plan for like democracy, and he included like legitimate audits. He included the language called like legitimate audits in there, legitimate election audits. Like, what is a legitimate election audit compared to like us saying fraud it and using that term the past so many months to stop what the Republicans are doing? Like, like it's just like you were undermining your own movement's messaging at this point. Like,
exactly. Well, Sean, don't you know, like the playbook has to be, you have to take the exact language of the other side and add an adjective to it. You don't draw from your own base. Hell no.
And I mean, and also I feel like people should be worried, or people should be concerned that, I'm not going to get into this right now. Just be concerned about the messaging in Pennsylvania over the next year, because it's going to be very top down. Yep. And there's going to be a lot of control over it.
Oh, I mean, I think that's a fair guess, even for somebody who is not completely plugged in on the inside. I mean, seriously, I mean, it's like I think that we're seeing it already. Oh
no, we are, and it's
yeah.
I mean, like Shapiro's comms, like yesterday they tweeted out like "Speak truth to power." Like, what does that mean? Like that was the tweet. Like, they're just putting out like these like platitudes that like Instagram motivational like things that girls would send you in messages.
Right. I mean, it's
like that type of stuff, like these Instagram inspirationals. Like,
there's gonna be more of that. Well, here you go. This is perfect for that. Amy says in the chat, she's like, our school board campaign was just told to put our heads in the sand, basically, and just ignore all the negative. Do not engage was the slogan. Only the positive, Sean. Only happy stuff.
Well, I mean, like Zoloft helps the medicine go down. Like,
right, exactly.
Like, from Don't Look Up.
Well, this is exactly. Well,
couples Zoloft, they help.
Oh, this is what happens when this is what happens when people misappropriate, right? Or the Michelle Obama quote, right? When they go low, we go high, right? That has been kind of utilized as a way to kind of basically say
one of the worst fucking campaigns.
When they fight, just be happy, right? I mean,
don't punch back.
Right? Don't punch back. Just
if they punch,
take it. Take it. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Take it on the
smile
chin.
on your face.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I also feel like this is pretty. I mean, like the only time pulling out will probably work is the Republican Party pulling out of the presidential debates.
Well, that's looks like it's in the books at this point.
I mean, like it's at this point, like. Really, like with this national divorce rhetoric, if you want it, then give it to them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we'll show you what a national divorce looks like. I'm not obviously like not in a violent sense, but like the way Marjorie Taylor Greene is. But the joke on that, but like it's just like, yeah, okay, you don't want to participate in democracy, like then. I mean, like this is themselves doing a better job than like Pelosi or others from like
well, they know
like distancing themselves from the party.
The Republicans know, right? They know that they have nothing to gain at this point, right? From engaging with the other side, right? What they have, their entire model, they're basically moving their media model into party politics, right? Basically saying we're only gonna talk to ourselves. Media. Exactly. And so that's what you're going to see. The big debates on the Republican Party are going to be the debates, the ones that are held by Newsmax versus Fox News, right? Versus, I don't know,
like, should we go to the cross burning or not go to the cross?
Right, exactly. I mean, that's going to be where the big debates are, right? What do we do with in what ways do we support the Proud Boys? The debate would be over like the different tactics that you can support the Proud Boys with. Or how do you kind of like defend against the suppression of white supremacists, right? How do you make sure that white supremacists are protected? I mean, that's like going to be the logical end of it. So I don't know. Last thing I want to say before we kind of go to a break is that I mentioned this at the top of the show, but I just got to close with this part for this segment too, because I would hope that we could at least agree that the Biden administration has seriously screwed up its COVID response when it comes to Omicron. It did a bang up job in the beginning and kind of getting things up and rolling, but the fact that they caved to the Delta CEO, like the airline industry,
yes, like and changed the stuff,
right?
And it's just like,
but the fact that when Omicron, so this is why when I start to hear people that are like either from the Biden administration or apologists for the Biden administration are sitting out there and trying to say, well, nobody could see this coming, is such a load of crap that we saw it coming. Journalists, like if you go back, there were journalists, right? We remember this, right? Where there was,
it originated in South Africa and people were like originated in South Africa and people realized how quickly it was spreading.
Exactly.
And in England and other countries.
And even before that, right, given the fact that I remember listening to experts come on and basically saying, and people from the Biden administration said, we got to strap in for a tough winter ahead. Why? Well, because we don't have the precautions. People are not masking. They've rolled back all the precautions. We don't have enough people vaccinated. And Delta was, it's going to continue to spread. In the winter months, we see an increase. We saw that. That was before Omicron. Then Omicron comes. Everyone just first of all, goes batshit crazy about it at first, right? Rightfully so. Like they actually paid attention to this new variant. Well, what are we going to do about it? And when Jen Psaki was asked, right, in a White House briefing, well, are you going to send out masks to everybody, right? That reporter was belittled. Right, what are we gonna do? Just send them out? Yeah, right. Yeah, like that's gonna happen. Yeah, like what? That's practical. Even though that's what the UK was doing at that point, right? And now right now we're seeing the spiking of like Omicron. In some cases, there's some research coming out of Boston saying that we might be seeing might be on the downside of the spike. Right, we may actually see lessening cases now in Omicron, and Omicron has been like this. So let's be clear. Tomorrow, starting Saturday, right, your medical insurance is supposed to be able to reimburse you, right? Instead of just getting it for free, to reimburse you if you have health insurance, you can go buy a mask and then get reimbursed for it by health insurance. But you have to contact your health insurance to figure out how that's going to happen, right? So you make it hard for people to do it, but they're going to do it. But by the time you can't get a mask right now because there was no surge in trying to producing the mask to get prepared for this, so you can't find a mask, right? If you do order it, by the time you get it in the mail, right, you're going to be like a week late, right, in terms of when you need it. So I mean, there's a whole bunch of problems with that. Same thing with testing, and the same thing with the vaccine, right? So let's be clear about it. So this has been a huge failure. And yes, I wanted to close with this in part because it's freaking hit my life again, right here. I shouldn't say again. This is the first time that we've had COVID in our family, right? And we've done everything freaking right, and I'm mad. And when I hear people try to apologize and try to make it sound okay that the Biden administration fumbled this, it's not true. And I'm not saying, therefore, I'm going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm saying let's be clear about this because we cannot allow this kind of nonsense to happen.
I hope after this, with everyone getting sick, there's going to be enough like immunity within the system to potentially stop this from happening, or it changes the virus to a point where it becomes more like a flu and becomes a milder like thing, and hopefully this
but that's the
what's
hope
happening right now.
But the thing is, the virus has it's showing that our immune response has a short memory, so that even if a whole bunch of people get sick, that's only good for 4 or 5 months, right? I mean, it's only if we get to the point where, like you said, something else happens with the virus where it becomes less deadly. But what people got in their brains, because our freaking education system sucks so bad that people don't even have it through their brains, that you don't, once you get it, it doesn't give you immunity for life. That's not the way this virus works. So good luck.
But come on there. You don't want to listen to Dr. Joe Rogan?
Jesus Christ.
Expert immunologist.
Right, exactly.
Just like
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
I just figured out, by the way, I'm not going to name names here, but a whole bunch of things clicked for me. I know about a whole bunch of more people right now in my community who watch Joe Rogan, because it just clicked for me. I'm like, that explains their response, right? Because
I mean, I do say I listen to Rogan. I will admit that I listen to Rogan. I'm not a fan of his. I don't believe in what he says, but I think it's worth listening to hear the bullshit that he says and the commentary leftists have of him, because like the misinformation and like disinformation that he is spreading is fucking wild at this point. Like, and it's just like, and how it's just like, no. And I mean, like, I hear this stuff and I'll make a joke to someone like, I listen to Dave Rubin and I now like Rubin sounds. And that's when I called out my brother, like, thanks there, Dave Rubin.
Yeah.
And he like, like, no, I mean, like, that's where it's good to like listen to this stuff, because you pick up on their rhetorical tricks with stuff with this shit.
Totally.
Like,
totally.
And it's just like, I'm not saying go out and like proselytize the Bible of Rogan, because that's bad. Right. It's
no, I know what you're saying.
He's worth like, no, because he is the one that is like platforming these doctors from like the Pennsylvania Coalition of Informed Consent and like those type of dark money groups that have popped up around this, that are spreading vaccine hesitancy in the capitals. Like, like I'm seeing the stuff in the Capitol where these organizations are coming in, having press conferences or like holding tabling events and stuff like that, and passing out their anti-vaccine leaflets and shit like that.
Exactly. And I know that, you really only go to Joe Rogan for the workout tips anyways, but anyways.
I mean, like, I used to listen to him because I thought he had like good, like he would bring on, no, he would bring on authors that I used to read and all growing up, like different authors or writers and shit like that, like before this and before the elections. And it's like, yeah, like not listen to this anymore. I mean, like go back to bringing on the person that was like doing psychedelics in like different countries and talk about like doing shrooms, acid, and like
Right.
that type of stuff. Like those were fun interviews to listen to. But now it's like
those were like gateway drugs.
Yeah,
basically.
you're just
to Joe Rogan's misinformation. I'm just playing.
But no, like he would bring on some of these people, like microdosing, like they would have interesting conversations.
Right.
And now it's just like it's all Dr. Oz, snake oil sales type shit.
Yep, indeed.
And I wonder how much money he's fucking making off that stuff.
Oh, dude, well, it's the biggest podcast out there. So, so before we go to break,
yeah, but I mean, on top of like,
go ahead. Sorry.
How much money he's getting from these dark money groups for the saying this shit, though.
Oh yeah, no shit. Before we go to break, Amy just wants to put out a call for you, Sean. She wants you to troll Lauren Boebert with her because she's just too easy. so it's a call for arms to Sean to troll Lauren Boebert with her. So cool. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to talk about the craziness that's happening right here in Pennsylvania. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. I want to remind you can help support this show by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. And, become a patron. And look, and if you are already a patron or if you can't become a patron at this point and you're listening to us on YouTube, you're watching us on YouTube, kind of make sure you like the stream, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and share it with your friends. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. We'll be back right after this quick break. Everybody, welcome back. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken, here once again with Sean Kitchen. Make sure, if you're listening in today, make sure you're liking that stream, make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel, and make sure you're sharing our podcast with all your friends. So, Sean.
It's the end of the world. Please like and subscribe.
Of the world as we know it. Exactly.
Live streaming from the end of the world.
Live streaming from the end of the world. Yeah. There's I started.
Please like and subscribe.
I started watching the series Foundation, which is based on Isaac Asimov's kind of sci-fi books from years ago. But there's this one planet that kind of I'm not spoiling anything. There's one planet where the opening scene kind of takes place in it. It's literally at the far edges of the galaxy. It's like the farthest outpost, and like I was thinking about that as like, yeah, that's kind of where we're podcasting from at this point. Right? We're sitting there, we're building our foundation right out in the most extreme outpost at the edge of the galaxy. That's another way of saying we're broadcasting from Pennsylvania. So Sean, man, what's going on in PA this week?
I mean, like, just the anti-democracy watch here in Pennsylvania is like pretty fun. I mean, you got the champion of voter ID, Mike Turzai, running for governor, who said that voter ID was going to give Mitt Romney the state of Pennsylvania. He's now running,
voter ID.
Great.
Done. We used to have that as a sound drop.
Current House Speaker Brian Cutler admitted that the January 6th Commission has been in contact with him. I wonder who else the J6 Commission has been in contact with out here in Pennsylvania. I mean, exactly. I could list off like 30 or 40 names. But I mean, again, it goes back to the day with the Stop the Steal rally. Like Jim Jordan and Scott Perry weren't just at the rally; they were inside the Capitol at that point. I remember Roxbury calling me and telling me that he just watched Jordan come out, the two of them come out of the Capitol. So who are they meeting with, and why? Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Well, we know why,
right?
And we probably know who.
The question is, what evidence?
Like these pieces of the puzzle,
right?
And the pieces of the puzzles are now coming in. You have gubernatorial candidates: Lou Barletta, Charlie Giroux, and Charlie Giroux's campaign manager / business partner at Quantum, Giroux's communications firm. They all signed their name as electors to the forged documents with this, to the Electoral College stuff on December 14th, 2020. It was funny because I remember it's just again I watched all this stuff unfold in person, in Harrisburg.
Yeah,
well, no one else was doing it.
No, exactly. Well, Ross just in the chat just basically said, and we know that the FBI called on Joan Cullen, the head of the Penridge School Board, who was down at January 6th too as well. So there you go.
I mean, a lot of people, and then last weekend we didn't put this in there, but holy shit, Mastriano had his campaign kickoff, and there were 400 or 500 people packed like sardines into this fucking room with no masks, singing revivalist Pentecostal music. He endorsed Teddy Daniels, the fucking white supremacist, running straight up white supremacist, running for lieutenant governor. So can you imagine a Mastriano and Teddy Daniels ticket? And then you have people who run different organizations in the state who are, on the more liberal side of things, already tutting Mastriano and saying if he wins the nomination, he'll lose by 10 points to Shapiro.
Jesus.
So we're already doing this 2016 bullshit again with Trump and Clinton.
This I don't understand how people don't.
And these are
get
people
it.
And these are people that are in the infrastructure of the party stuff. It's just it's so
there is no white knight.
Here we go. Welcome to 2020. Yeah, welcome to 2020.
Yeah, exactly.
2022. I mean, Jesus Christ.
As my son
it's
says,
still March of 2020.
No, here's what my son says. Well, look, there was 2020, which sucked. And you know what we say about 2020? Well, 2021, 2021, use the pun, 2021. And what's this? Now we're in 2022. Also, it's this is what he's been doing with his time. It's because he's in quarantine. He's so freaking bored. So, anyways, go ahead. Yeah.
So,
so it's gonna get interesting all around the board, right? I mean, it's gonna get interesting pretty quickly.
And then you have Republicans running a whole bunch of constitutional amendments or dangling these constitutional amendments over the heads of the Supreme Court because they're upset with the map. So they're trying to use this stuff they're trying to legislatively blackmail the PA Supreme Court and bending them to their will through the legislative process and threatening to pass these constitutional amendments that will completely hinder the court. House Bill 38 will instantly dissolve the Supreme Court. And then the Republican-dominated legislature gets to redraw the lines where the 6 justices go, or 7 justices. This is just really fucking crazy stuff. You have a constitutional amendment that came out of committee this last week that strips the LRC of the map-making power, which strips the Supreme Court of this. So, I mean, they are dangling these carrots or sticks out there to go after the institutions that are in charge of overseeing voting rights, and not on top of going after voting rights. So all this could be on the ballot by spring of 2023, and then all this stuff is permanently enacted and going into the future.
So if it's on the ballot, if it's on the ballot in 2023, does that mean it'll be voted on during the primaries, like the last time round?
Yeah, they can do that. Yeah. So like they can exploit a 9% voter turnout primary
Right.
to permanently change the Constitution in their favor and permanently write them into power, even though their numbers are dwindling.
Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry to be a downer, but
But Sean,
like these are like the
Pennsylvania Republican Party would never do such a thing.
I mean, like, but that's what like the Democrats are thinking. You know, some members like, I can't believe the Republicans are doing this, and I'm just like, that's your failure.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a failure on
That's
your
on
end.
you, buddy. Oh my God. Oh,
yeah, it's not on me. That
crazy. Well, we do have some good news, though, right? I mean, there is some positive news happening out in Harrisburg. Well, I don't know. We talked about we talked about the elector stuff already, but do you want to talk about what's going to happen out in Harrisburg?
Yeah. So, the Harrisburg Area Community College has finally had their union election scheduled. Are those the electors?
That's the elector sheet, just so everybody can, so that's what it looks like. Just got my copy. That's all. Sorry.
No problem. Harrisburg Area Community College professors are going to have their union vote after like 2 years of this organizing campaign, 2 years of anti-union bullshit by the administration. Literally, the PLRB, the Pennsylvania Labor Relations Board, found that, ruled in favor of Hawk Faculty United and PSEA, who the union, they are organizing under the PSEA, found that like they ruled in favor of those two entities, that HAC was padding their faculty lists with professors who were teaching there before the union signing campaign happened, in order to stop them, dilute the pool, and like stop them from getting the 30% needed in the card check process. Yeah, like they got caught padding their fucking.
Yep, I mean,
because they wouldn't hand over the faculty list for years.
Yep, this is classic kind of like hardcore union busting tactic right there.
Yeah, and the person who's doing this is Dr. Ski. He is a liberal. He thinks of himself as like this do-good progressive in social circles. He has a lot of social and political capital here in Harrisburg, and he also has a really bad anti-worker history at all of his at all the colleges he went to. So there will be more reporting on that coming up in the weeks ahead.
There you go. That's awesome.
So
just the joy.
Yeah.
Well, out here in Central, I'm thinking about. I didn't mention this at the top of the show, but I've been thinking about what to do for Out to Coop Live on Monday, and this is especially for folks who are listening to the show now or listening to the podcast in here. I'm really thinking about wanting to focus on the school boards. I've been back and forth on this a little bit since it is Dr. Martin Luther King Day, and I was thinking about having a guest on for that. But given what's actually happening in the attack on democracy and what's happening in our schools right now, I'm thinking about focusing on that on Monday. So if there's anybody who has got some ideas about some potential guests, I got some people I'm going to be reaching out to, or if you want to just do a general discussion, I'd love to have some folks that are on the show, even if there's regular listeners who have been involved with the campaigns who'd like to come on and just as part of kind of like a roundtable about what's happening in our school board. I'd love to do that on Monday too as well. So I'm just going to put that out to folks. Those of you who are patrons of the show, you're going to get a message about this too as well. I'd love to hear, about the possibilities of doing such a roundtable on Monday. I know that's going to conflict with some school board meetings that are that may be out there, but just going to throw that out there for now. A couple things that I want to kind of say. I mentioned this already in particular, but I just want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. So on Central Bucks School Board on this past week, we saw what the Central Bucks School Board did this week was to basically agree that they were going to go ahead, they were going to knowingly lie about their health and safety protocols. So Chris Ullery, my fault. Chris Ullery of the Courier Times had a great piece covering this this past week. So you remember Dr. Mariam Mahmood. She was just elected to the school board at Central Bucks. She basically was kind of pointing out that, she's actually, when it says, Dr. Mariam, it's because she's an actual doctor, right? She's like medical doctor. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention had updated their guidelines on the 27th. And the school board, therefore, has been updating their guidelines based upon the changes, right? Changes that are going on. So they've been paying attention to that stuff. The Children's Hospital of Philadelphia Policy Lab also updated recommendations. And the Central Bucks plan basically said that it was following the latest guidelines from the CDC and so on, as per the recommendation of the CDC. But Dr. Mahmood pointed out that, this wasn't accurate, that the document didn't accurately reflect those latest changes, and wanted to make sure that they were kind of being upgraded and they were following it. And particularly if you're going to come back to school after 5 days, whatever it is, that you're going to have to be wearing a mask, that happened to be missing from it. So she points this out, right, to kind of like say, yes, we need to be following these guidelines. The board's basically, we don't care. We're going to keep them both in there. We're not going to change it. We're not going to kind of bring our guidelines up to the CDC guidelines, the new guidelines. We're not going to change the language that actually says that we're following it. So basically, we're going to knowingly lie about this and put it forward for there. And it was voted on. And of course, on a 6-3 vote, it was agreed to be adopted. So now you have Central Bucks School Board has got its health and safety guidelines that does not follow CDC guidelines, but tells you that it does. Right, so great reporting, Chris Ullery, on that. Great work for those the couple of the folks that were newly elected there, who basically were pointing out the craziness of it. So, and I do want to give a shout out also to Delangelo. What's her first name? Tabitha. Dr. Tabitha Delangelo was also one of the newly elected board members of the Central Bucks School District. The way that she put it, so I'll read a little bit from the piece. Says Mahmood suggested other changes like requiring masks be worn inside the nurses' stations at all schools, but ultimately was only joined by members Dr. Tabitha D'Angelo and Karen Smith in the vote to approve the plan. So only those three have said no. And then this is a quote, which I love this one. Quote, so I move that we strike all references to following any health agency guidelines. We strike it all and we just call it the CBSD Fun and Crazy Health and Safety Plan, Delangelo frustratedly suggested after the vote. I think we need more of that. Right? So at some point, we're going to have her on the show too as well. So that's what happened at Central Bucks. In Penridge, they just basically are saying they're just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They just don't even care. Right, so I want to give you just an example. These are I have in my hands. These are two forms. This is the original guidelines that every time that there was a positive case that was sent out to us as parents, that was going to potentially where our kids were exposed because nobody has masks and some people are reporting that they have COVID. And then the one that is dated Monday, January 10th, the one that I was talking about kind of early on, that we received in the mail with their updates. And that was at 6:01 p.m. So this is after I had spoken to the school earlier in the day. So it used to be, for example, individuals who are asymptomatic and were exposed to a positive household member may return to schoolwork after 3 days from exposure, but are required to wear a mask through the 7th day after the onset of the positive case. Right? And then incidents of students who become symptomatic at school will be handled by the nurse. Okay. There was also one that said individuals who are asymptomatic and were exposed to a positive non-household member may attend school or work and should consult their medical legal. That was the original one. Here's the new one. A whole bunch of new language saying there. All individuals, procedures for those individuals who have been exposed to a positive test, right, or have tested positive. So individuals who are asymptomatic and were exposed to a positive household member who is able to isolate may attend school or work. So if your household member, right, tested positive, right, yeah, it's fine. If they can isolate, they got a room, you don't need to test, you don't need to find out if you have it first, no, you can just go, right? 2, individuals who are asymptomatic and were exposed to a positive household member who was not able to isolate must remain isolated at home for a minimum of 3 days. Now it's 3 days from the onset for the individual who tested positive in the household. If symptom-free, the individual who is exposed may return to school or work on the 4th day. Individuals should consult their medical provider of their nurse symptoms. Notice, not required to come back with a mask. So 3 days, back in school, mask. Individuals who are exposed to a positive household member and have symptoms must remain at home for 3 days from the onset of symptoms. If symptoms are resolving and they are fever-free for at least 24 hours, they may return to school or work, but then they have to wear a mask through the 7th day. So only if you're back in school with symptoms do you have to wear a mask. And we should say it's all on the honor system because there's no testing, there's no proof required. Parents don't even have to tell if they don't want to. Sure, they're said they should, but there's no actual testing, right? So that's what's going on here. So anyways, that's just one of the reasons why I think it's so critical kind of to talk further about this stuff and to see what organizing is actually going on about up here. So I don't know. Ross also mentioned that kind of not following the CDC guidelines could actually lose state and federal funding. I know that there's actually some people that are looking into that because if you're not following these guidelines, if you're not following what the policy is, and you're saying that you are, or you're just ignoring it entirely, you have the potential to lose funding. So we're going to see what happens with that. I'm crazy. That's all I got from here, kind of a little my neck of the woods. Anything else happening in Pennsylvania, Sean?
Nothing really. Expect the congressional maps to get passed next week. That's about it.
There you go. Well, I'll tell you what. Then we're gonna...
there's an obscure rule. If the congressional maps get vetoed next week, we can go down this rabbit hole of having a 17-way at-large congressional election in Pennsylvania next year if the districts are not writing that in time, which I think would be fucking awesome. Like just a 17-person, like that primary field and the election free for all that would happen would be like insane. But I'm in the minority on that one.
Yeah, well. Well, crazy.
Some people like, you just like watching things burn. I'm like, yeah, I do.
Yep. Sometimes I do. I'm actually watching that at Kutztown right now. I mean, that's it. That's what's actually happening. And I feel like, it's not that I don't care, right? It's that I've cared too much and I poured my freaking heart and soul into trying to kind of make that a better place for now. But now it just feels like, okay, it's just gonna burn. It's just gonna burn. So anyways, got a lot more to say about stuff in Pennsylvania, but I'm going to cut it off there because I don't want to go. And Sean, by the way, has to get out of here quickly, pretty soon to get his laundry done, because there is a cold snap that is coming in. And so this is like absolutely emergency situation here that Sean has to do his laundry. So
I don't feel like I have to do my laundry tomorrow when it's like 10 degrees outside in the middle of the fucking pandemic.
Right.
Because I do like sit outside, like, and like not try to be around people in this, even with like having a mask on and shit like that. So
yeah, no, and I know, and I know because that's really tough when you're sitting outside at the bar at night and stuff like this, and outside the little outdoor bar, eating your wings and things like this. I understand how that goes.
No, there is no outdoor bars.
and so why exactly, and so why the laundry thing is so actually critical, to make sure that we get that, because Sean had worked so hard all week long that this is the only small slice of time that he had available to do his laundry this week.
I don't think you realize. Like I wrote like 4 blogs this week. I had like a bunch of phone calls. I went to the farm show a couple days. We didn't even talk about the farm show. I guess we can do that like next segment. But yeah, I mean, like I was busy this week. I had like 3 blogs written by like Tuesday afternoon, which is just like
almost like a regular job.
Which is
almost like most people's work week every week.
Yeah, I mean, it was like one of those rare weeks I actually had to do stuff.
There you go. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with this week's last call. Yeah, we'll talk a little about the farm show and Sean's experience. Talk about Don't Look Up, a little bit of Station 11 and Foundation. We'll be back right after this. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. We'll be right back with this quick break.
Where are all my people? Where are all my people? Where are all my people?
Welcome back. This is Ken Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken, with this week's Last Call. We talk whatever else is going on in our mind. I'm sorry, I was like laughing so hard, I was making myself choke during our little break here. So it was much. Well, yeah, Sean, I didn't have it in the show notes, but we didn't have it anywhere in the show notes. But this past week was the farm show. Do tell, man, what was that experience like?
It was nice. I mean, Saturday was pretty good. It wasn't packed as it was in previous years. I would say like 5% of the people were wearing masks, just like, which is pretty normal for central Pennsylvania. I don't know how it is down like southeast, but
please tell me they chipped everyone on the way in so we can track whether or not they contract the virus afterwards.
No, I heard we were just licking doorknobs and stuff like that, like every touchable surface. No, it was. I mean, it was a couple days I went there. It was nice. I ran a 50 millimeter lens I wasted $100 on and didn't fucking use it at all. Which is great.
Really?
Well, simply because I don't like the focal length of like the 50 millimeter. It's like too boxy, where like the 35 is like your peripheral vision, where like if you put like horse blinders on, like that's 50 millimeter in front of you. So it's just like, I've been shooting with this focal length for so long where I can see it before like taking a photo. Like, you know what I mean? I can eye up a shot before like taking a camera, putting the camera in my face.
Yeah, you're that good. I understand.
It was actually pretty. Yeah, I'm a savant, but Ansel, they were calling me Ansel Adams after those bridge pictures. So, it was actually funny. I got a picture of David McCormick, who is the Senate person that's running for office, and it was actually pretty funny. I was just going around taking pictures of like lambs and sheep, pigs, and alpaca, and like I turned around and there's like McCormick there with all of his entourage. One of the people who did sign the letter was there, Lisa Patton. She's on the elector thing if you look. Like it was funny because I know who she is from bartending and being an obnoxious Trump supporter and business owner in the area. Like I just went up and started grabbing their photos with my camera, and the staffers were like, "Do you work for Bridge?" Speaking of American Bridge, and like that was funny. I told them I'm a photographer. I'm on the Dem side. I'm here just walking around today. I was like, I definitely know who you are, and I was like, I'm the only person with your photo at the farm show. Like I telling their staffers that, like, yeah, think about it, I'm the only person right now who has this photo at the farm show. Yeah. So I mean, I did put it up on my Instagram account. They liked it. They thought it was a good photo, but it's still like, I mean, I'm not gonna like be an asshole with them at that point. Like, I'm doing what I'm doing, and I was able to, I came here to get people's photos and get pictures of like animals and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool. It was nice. I didn't really have too much food. I had the milkshake. Every time you go to the farm show, you gotta have a farm show milkshake. It's like
is that a rule?
It's the tradition there. So
okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah, they infect you with COVID on the way out if you don't have a milkshake.
So, gotcha.
Yeah.
Did they have the syringes there available to pump the virus directly into the bloodstream?
Yeah. And then no, but it was nice. But it was just fun shit posting about it. There was a tent there that was selling stuff from the Iron Rod of Ministries, which is like the guy with the crown of bullets.
Nice.
Up in the gun church, which was nice. Stuff like that. I mean, you're walking into like America's soft white underbelly at this point. Like,
I think that's soft pasty white underbelly, I believe is what you.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was fun. It was nice. I liked it. The photos came out nice. Love taking pictures of the animals. So
yeah. No, there you go. That's cool. All right. So the good thing, we talked a little about this already, but I was like, man, I'm so glad watched Don't Look Up finally. If you have not watched it at this point,
I think it was worth it.
This is your chance to kind of like to not listen anymore, because I'm not gonna kind of try to prevent myself from I don't know. I'm not going to try to stop the spoilers. Let me put it this way.
So, okay, talking about spoilers before we get into this. Over the Christmas break, I watched the Dexter series that came back on. They had a new season, and I only got to watch like the first 6 episodes because like they only release one each week. And then like, my mom calls me and starts telling me everything that happens in the next episode. I'm like, Mom, stop! Like, you're fucking ruining it for me. Like, so. But no, like there will be spoilers ahead. So here's your spoiler alert.
Yeah, but I do agree. I mean, you and I talked a lot about this offline, like ahead of time. But that was the movie is so good, and I don't know if you saw, but he was I'm forgetting the guy's name whose movie it was. Adam McKay, I think.
Adam McKay,
yeah, and he was on Chris Hayes. Chris Hayes interviewed him kind of the other night. And there was so much about that movie that was so dead on, right? That it was just.
I mean, there were parts of it like reading it. Like they said they had to actually like cut a couple scenes because those things actually happened in real life, and it would be like stealing someone else's work.
Yeah.
If you could think about the absurdity of like what politics is like,
right?
I mean, and it's. I mean, I liked it. I don't know about you, but I liked it for the fact that, like, I mean, this is like me and Rox. Like, if me and Roxbury were to write a movie, it would be like this. Like, just like rude, crude, just like us doing everything we can. But I mean, like, that is what politics is like. I mean, it's not like House of Cards or like these other shows that like, you know, make the Kevin Costner or whatever, not Kevin Costner, but whoever played in House of Cards the speaker, make him like this evil, conniving person.
Oh,
like,
Kevin Spacey?
Yeah, I'm sure that happens with Kevin Spacey. Like that happens with leadership, but like Don't Look Up is more accurate to politics than House of Cards or West Wing.
Yeah, and I agree. And I have to say is like, I'm like, to see myself in Jennifer Lawrence, I was very like, like that's the way I feel so often in my life. Right? When she goes on that, are you people kidding me? You're gonna die. You know, I'm like, thank you for those moments of catharsis, right? Because like, that's the way I freaking feel half the time. And like she did for me, did an amazing job of like with her eyes just being like, are you people serious? Like, are you kidding? Like, just kind of like looking around at the conversation and you can like see the explosion happening inside of her brain. I mean, like, I was like so at the point of identification with her, like there's so much of the movie. I swear to God. But I also thought that
I'm trying to like figure out if.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to
figure out if like Meryl Streep was supposed to be like, if Meryl Streep's character was supposed to be Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton. I think it was supposed to be Nancy Pelosi. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I think I think they did a great job of kind of blurring it because you don't really know whether they're Democrats or Republicans.
I mean, for me, like, this is like, well, you saw the one photo of like Clinton, Bill, and Hillary, and them like looking at it as like idols and stuff like that. So I'm assuming like they're Democrats, but like this is definitely shit like Democrats would do. Like, I mean, like, just from like working in politics and hearing some of these fucking like ideas. I mean, like, for instance, this reminded me when Tony Williams had that fucking legislation back in 2015 where college students who are in debt can enter into a fucking lottery system, scratch offs, to like pay down their student debt. I mean, like, this is at a press conference saying this with a straight face.
Yep. No, but I remember. I mean, this is why I said they blurred the lines because once she goes off and starts giving those rallies, right? That's clearly like Trump rally, right? I mean, so then it gets into the don't look up, right? Those rallies is just toward the end, but the insider stuff. This is why I loved what they did with it because. Oh, Amy says nope, Palin.
Why are you breathing heavy? Just like,
yeah, that guy is so freaking hilarious. Be like, I don't know,
Jonah Hill's
you're making me anxious just like listening to you, right? Just can't you just like be whatever? But you know, I think some initial stuff before I watched the movie. I was seeing these like discussions on Twitter. People like just panning and saying, "Oh, it's too heavy-handed," and blah blah blah. I'm like, I don't think that was too heavy-handed. I thought that was really solid, on the money satire.
Yeah, I mean, that was almost like Poe's law of satire, where it was so good it could be real. Like Poe's law was just like you get into satire to the point where it is real, but it did a really good job of like blurring the lines. Like, no, this actually can happen in real life. Like, I mean, it's also, I feel like that's great. I mean, with having David Sirota on there as a writer who spent time in politics and doing this stuff, and whose wife is an elected official. Like, I mean, like this stuff is. Yeah, I know a couple people who are upset because of Sirota and the digs that were in it, but
there's like, look, there's people there's people that anything that Sirota is like the touches is going to be like tainted for the rest of their life. I mean, just because people have got such such bad blood in some circles there, but whatever. I mean, like, you know, I just like, I have no patience for it. I mean, come on. But the other thing was go ahead. Sorry.
As soon as they make the pivot to we're gonna mine this fucking thing, just like I think Jen Lawrence goes home just like you know, we don't want any of your political bullshit. We're for the jobs that the Comet will bring.
Yeah, I love that.
And just go like pro jobs. I put on Twitter pro jobs, pro Comet, and just people were just like, I fucking hate you. Like, we're doomed.
I definitely want to.
That is the philosophy of the. I mean, but that is the philosophy of the Democratic Party when it comes to climate change.
Yep.
Like, you know, they're beholden to the building trades that are involved with the pipelines and, you know, putting out the infrastructure. They're beholden to these organizations, you know, like Governor Wolf with the Mariner East and the cracker plants and stuff like this. Like, I mean, it in my opinion, it shows you the flaws of the Democratic infrastructure because, like, there are people in these institutions, like different building trades and different, like, you know, political offices that believe in carbon capture, and that carbon capture is the panacea to stopping or reversing climate change. But the only thing is, it's just like, yeah, okay, let's, you know, it sounds good in theory, but like that's only theoretical physics. Like once you start mapping out the physics involved and scaling it to size, it's almost impossible.
Right. Well, and I think that, you know,
and it's what.
Go ahead. Sorry, the delay is getting us.
No, like this is the snake oil that, you know, like these people are selling.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, you know, this is where like Anand Giridharadas's book Winners Take All describes exactly this process, this Silicon Valley kind of like approach to the solutions, and how that it just kind of won over so many of those folks in the Democratic Party who was like, oh, now we've got our own billionaires, right, who've got cool techno solutions to things, and let's go with them. Right, and they'll be our supporters, and you see that happen in the film. That was great. It was a lot of fun, and devastating too. And I have to say that the interview that Adam McKay did with Chris Hayes, when they talk about it, and he talks about, you know, this feeling of just kind of like being gaslit all the time, right, and just living in this world that is just not corresponding with reality. It was such a great conversation, which I, you know, highly suggest to folks to check that out because it's really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, like it's also like the past year and a half, 2 years of this pandemic and following these like right-wing movements for work. It's, you know, like there's an aspect of that where it's just a complete denialism and like gaslighting of all this. But I mean, I thought it was a really good movie. I feel like it mixed in the coronavirus stuff or any like disaster related, like existential disaster, like related scenarios to this. Like, you know what I mean? Like no, I mean, we're all going to die.
We're all going to die. Like, yep. I definitely.
And then the different endings.
Check it out.
And the 3 different endings, I thought were hilarious. The very last one. All right, live stream from the end of the world.
Like and
please
subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Smash that like and subscribe.
exactly. That was
I mean,
great.
it's awesome how they blended that in, like, because that is now like and subscribe is pretty much said in every single YouTube video, like involved like with left wing. Oh yeah, no, I mean,
Yep.
but it's amazing how something like that has taken over like the lexicon and stuff like that. So
Yep, absolutely, 100%. So quickly, a couple of the things that if you want to have like another like set of things to check out that are not as kind of overtly say political as as that, but really really good TV. I just finished Station 11, and Station 11 is it's based upon a book. If you don't know this already, written by Emily St. John Mandel. And it is about a kind of basically a pandemic called the Georgia flu in the book that basically wipes out huge amounts of people, like most of the world's population. And it's that's where the kind of things are. So I'm not spoiling anything by telling you that. But I remember picking it up as a suggested book about sci-fi dystopian fiction during the pandemic. I read the book. I don't know, probably in the fall of 2020. It's my guess. And I loved the book. I was like, wow, this book is just great. The film is, I mean, the TV series, it's on HBO Max. It's great. It is so good. And if I had to describe what it's about, right, why you should watch it without giving away plot points and things like this, it feels to me, I'll just talk about how it feels. It feels to me like the both the overt and that kind of the lagging emotional trauma of like the pandemic that we've all been living through, right? Coupled with personal histories, personal backgrounds, and the kind of things like, you throw in there climate change and all these kind of things, which are this steady, persistent, makes these really difficult claims on our kind of an emotional lives, right? It's kind of really drives the core of this. And there's this scene, I can't remember if I mentioned this on the show last week or not, but there's this scene where the little girl, because the thing but flashes back and forth in time, but there's this one scene with a little girl and this one guy, and they're looking at this book called Station 11. It's a comic book that kind of has a key part in this entire story. And the little girl goes to the other room, and the guy says to his brothers, I don't know why kids like Harry Potter so much. And he's like, what are you talking about? Right? He's like, why? What do you mean? And he said, it's because Harry Potter. And he looks at him and he says, they like it because it makes the world small. Right? And I was like, holy shit. For like this one kind of line, they just move on from it at that point. That really captures the lens through which this whole series is kind of like bringing these things down to these moments of this small traveling troupe, right? They're the kind of they're a traveling theater group that circles Lake Michigan, kind of in the post pandemic world, right? And that's where it is, and it brings it down to this moment. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's painful. It's not this kind of thing that's about gore. You don't need to see like massive amounts of people like dead. All of it. It's not like that. It's these. And I read some stuff with the director, one of the directors or showrunners of the show, that they said they purposely wanted to make this as a different kind of post-apocalyptic kind of film, where instead of most post-apocalyptic or dystopian films, you see the afterwards is this kind of like this torn apart like arid like wrecked landscapes. In this one, it's this kind of lush green empty world. Right. And so if you're looking for something, it's on HBO Max. It is absolutely fantastic. I cannot recommend the show enough. It's really, really good. And then the other one that I just started watching that I've heard tons about has been Foundation, which is based on Isaac Asimov's books. It's you go from this kind of like, making the world small to making the world huge. Foundation is about a galactic empire that is facing its own fall. This happens in the first episode, that's facing its own fall, and you're dealing with questions of empire, of rule, political intrigue and all this other kinds of stuff. I don't know where it's going to go yet. I don't know how closely they follow the books and everything, but I'm really looking forward to that. I also like the setup so far in the cast. It's really, really cool. So another something to check out. So anyways, that's all I got. Sean, anything else you got going on?
I did see a report that came out a couple days ago that I thought has some really good news in it about the coronavirus.
Okay.
Basically, if you smoke a lot of marijuana,
yes,
and apparently it helps. It helps. It helps defeat the Rona or prevent it from happening. So, I think.
Yep.
I think there's a correlation. I don't know if it's like.
Well, here I sent you that article from Forbes, basically saying like, but it's actually I checked out. It's not bullshit. It's actually I checked out some of the like what that was based upon afterwards. It's look, it's also not like the miracle cure, right? But basically, what the research was found is that this particular cannabinoid oil.
Yeah, cannabinoid.
That they found that it provided some resistance from the ability for coronavirus to get into cells, right? So there's
which I'm not surprised because.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's a fatty. I'm not surprised because it's like the way like the I think THC is more like a fatty or like a lipid versus like coronavirus, which is like protein. But I'm not sure the science behind it, but like how it would break down the molecular level. But I thought it was a fun article to read.
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting. It's like once you get into the science of it a little bit. Amy K says, "Go Mary Jane," once you get into the science of it a little bit, it's pretty interesting. And so they're doing a bunch of tests now with kind of larger groups of folks to kind of see what the effects are, what the effects can be. So yes, I'm sure when they I think even the majority report reported on this after I had sent you that. Like I sent you that in the morning, and then I was like later on that day they actually talked about it too. And immediately everyone's like, oh yeah, quick, go to my Substack for more information. It's like people gonna try to capitalize off it and try to kind of like make some serious bank by grifting on it. And that is going to happen. I guarantee you that. But it's actually also fascinating to see what happens when you kind of open up these lines of research and actually ask kind of cool questions about it. So who knows, maybe in long term.
And it's also like, not having it on a Schedule I drug for 50 or 60 years and, be able to do like actual research with it. I mean, like there's so many different cannabinoids in the THC, like
right.
It's not just THC and CBD. Like there are so many other different compounds. And yeah, I mean, I smoke, I use it for my back. My back hurts a lot. And it's just like, for me, it's the type of thing where, I don't want to be on pain pills for back pain. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, Ross now says, here you go. I should have monetized this now. Ross now says, wow, I'm seeing the references. Thanks. Party on, dudes, and be excellent.
But I mean, it's just like one more. It is literally like a miracle plant. Let's be honest.
Well, I don't know if I want to go that far.
I know. No, my aunt has bad knees, and she's been using THC lotion lately, and she's like in her 80s and liking it. So, it's definitely interesting. I mean, at this point, it's going to be legalized unless we have like Governor Mastriano next year.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. We're gonna get the miracle.
I really think Shapiro should capitalize on the pro pot, like. Just solely fucking campaign on legalizing marijuana
as a purely political matter, take all the other stuff out of it. Totally. Like, I mean, I think you're dumb if you don't. I mean, seriously, at this point.
Like, protecting abortion and legalizing marijuana. Like,
yeah, you think about anybody who votes for you based upon pot is the miracle the miracle plant. You can give them a unicorn pin too. That'd be great.
But it's also what thing amazes me is like how often Democrats shy away from like.
Sorry.
Like
Emily just said.
I'm
sorry. Emily just says. In some ways, it feels like a love letter. That's awesome.
So okay, there's also like one other thing I want to talk about that's not pot related.
Yeah.
Enrique Tarrio from the Proud Boys was just released from jail. He just completed his he did 4 months and a week out of his 5-month sentence. Yeah, tell me this guy isn't a Fed. Right now, with here's this guy, he gets pulled over for minor gun traffic charges 2 days before the insurrection. You're gonna tell me the Feds didn't pull him out of DC and just start turning it over on people? Well,
you know what I heard
for this? I mean,
I heard the Feds pulled him over, and he gave him a joint, and everything was fine.
Yeah, no, that's not what happened. But no. The thing with Tarrio is he was a Fed, right? He was a Fed informant beforehand.
Yeah.
So you're gonna tell me they didn't plan him in there, or he gets arrested on gun charges a day before the insurrection happens? I don't know. I think looking back on that now, and all the Proud Boys who are caught up,
yeah,
and going to jail over this, and he's out.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Suspicions.
I'm sure. Hey, did I ever tell you about my? Did I ever tell you about uncovering an FBI plant at a global justice protest? Did I ever tell you about that?
No, but you didn't tell me about that. So I'll tell you one thing before that. At the Black Lives Matter protest last year, a bunch of cops were out there in their 90s sand-washed jeans and Quicksilver shirts. So I went up to them, I was like, "How's it going, officers?" And they just fucking looked at me and walked away. Because the journalist just started talking to me about stuff. I was like, "Hey, turn around." I was like, "How's it going, officers? Mind if we talk real quick?" And they just fucking looked at me and walked away.
It's great.
And the journalist just "Are you serious? You just did that?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yep.
I don't care. I'll fucking cop at a protest.
Exactly. All right. So I'll tell you this. This is after you got the battle in Seattle takes place, right? That was in late November, early December in 1999, right? So in the spring of 2000. They're having, the whole idea was that you're going to continue on this stuff, and they set up A16, which was the protest against the IMF and the World Bank, right? So it was the first real DC based, protest against the IMF and World Bank. And I was I lived in DC at the time, right? So, and I was teaching at George Washington University, which is literally you walk out of one building at GW and across the street is the World Bank. So that's how close it was. The students and some faculty members, community members, and everything were doing great organizing and all this stuff. And so there was the lead up. It was the day before. There were some actions and some kind of smaller marches, kind of around A16, that were, in part different groups were coming, scoping out the place. They were also groups that were coming to, do actions ahead of the main action, basically, right? But they were all kind of more nonviolent and all this other kind of stuff. They were kind of less confrontational. The goal was not to shut everything down at that point, but it was to raise awareness around particular issues. So this one day, and organizing was going on for months, right? So these are well-organized groups that were together and everything. So this one day, I don't even remember what the action was, but there was a group that was heading up, and they were going to be meeting outside the IMF and World Bank. It was some kind of teach-in. I don't remember specifically what it was. It wasn't like Naomi Klein, but it was another kind of fairly kind of big figure was going to come to give this little teach-in. And so I'm with a group. There's some students. There's some other kind of faculty members, which I didn't really know a whole lot of people at that point yet. But I was just with a bunch of people that I'd been doing some organizing stuff with. And so walking to meet up, and we're kind of gathering on this square ahead of this stuff. And we had kind of been marching for a little while. So I kind of come up into this one area. And there's this group of this young women, probably in their 20s or whatever, are kind of gathered in this little bit of a half circle. And there's a couple guys mixed in. Somebody's pulling out a drum. And then there's this other guy who's kind of in your standard, whatever, I don't know, he just looks like someone else is gonna be at a protest, right? So he comes over and he goes to sit next to these women, right, and just on the grass in front, and they're talking about strategy, whatever. And this other woman comes up and she's walking over to join them, right? So one of the women waves to her, and she's like, "Oh, hey!" So she's coming over to join them. So she walks by. This guy's back is to her, right, and he's sitting there talking to her. And she walks by and she looks down on the ground. Right. And she reaches down and she picks something up and she's like, "Is this yours?" right? And it's an FBI badge. And like I'm standing like right there in the side, right? And this guy like looks at me, he's like, and he's like, well, what am I gonna do? Yeah, he's like, and I gotta say, the guy was like the best sport of an FBI agent you could possibly be, like who's been on the insider, like. Then he's like, what am I gonna say? You know, I'm not gonna deny, you know, whatever. It's like clearly my picture, and you know, to his credit and to their credit. They sat and they had a conversation for like 45 minutes about after that. But it was like the funniest moment to see this guy's face, to see this woman looking over like, is this yours? And you can see FBI like hanging up there, and his face is just like goes pale, goes red, goes like, you know,
oh
it was
shit!
beautiful. It was beautiful. Oh god.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring that.
Right.
I'm sure that was definitely fun.
Oh, that was a blast. That was one of my favorite moments of that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's just like hilarious just seeing that. Like
that was great.
I would have been like, the fuck are you doing here? You're just like, really?
Yep. No, exactly. All right, man.
Like, well, what are you gonna do? You can't like do anything physical to them at that point, but you outed them and just like, all right, like.
No, and he could have tried to tell a story or kind of like make it up or whatever, but he didn't. He just kind of like, okay, look, I'm not gonna, you know, whatever, and and they kind of, you know, what was funny about it is like. As they were talking about it, right? It was like this great scene like plays itself out, right? She was like, "Is this yours?" Right? You watch his face, and there's these two women that are kind of on the far end of the circle from where I'm standing, right? They look at one turns the other one's like, "I told you," right? Right? She's like, "I nailed him. It was great. It was awesome." Anyways. All right, man, I'll let you go do your laundry. The sun's going down practically, so you better get out there before the Arctic temperatures. Watch out for the mastodons.
Have a little bit.
They're going to be coming for you.
It's going to be like, it's going to get down like, I think it's going to be like a high of like 15 or 20 tomorrow in Harrisburg. Like, it's going to get to like... Yeah, I'm going to go down like 5 tonight. So
yeah, it's crazy. Emily said, "Did you guys hear about the GOP legislator staffer who was killed in a road rage incident that he started?" No, I didn't hear about that.
Yes, I did.
Down in Florida, I guess.
This guy, this is a GOP staffer. He ended up fucking plowing into a Tesla on purpose, and then like pulled out a gun, and the guy in the Tesla started shooting back and killed him.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Yeah, there you go. Like, happy weekend, everybody! Holy shit!
But like that's, yeah. I mean, like, yeah. So
crazy. All right, man. Well, listen.
More than you can chew.
Yeah, listen. Make sure everything gets good and clean. Make sure you get like all the farm show like animal shit that's like stuck in the bottom cuffs of your pants that you got this week. So, no, man. Well, listen. Have a good one and stay warm this weekend. Thank you all for the awesome chat today. Fantastic. Love hearing about it. I'll be back in touch with everybody. Look to our Patreon and then Twitter. We'll see if we can get something together for a little roundtable on Monday. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Sean, man, take it easy. Have a good weekend, man.
You too.
All right, I'm out of here. I'm going to go check in on my kids and see how they're doing. Hopefully my son is going to pull through okay. They have Monday off for Martin Luther King Day, so it gives them an extra day to respond. Be safe out there, everybody. This thing is not over, and it legitimately sucks. See ya!